Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock, 9:03 actually, and we have a nice, not overwhelming collection of people. So feel free to, I think with this number, which we're up to 22, it can be more free form. Last week, I think it had to be a little bit more formal with over 100. So we just wanted to kind of make DEP staff, particularly me and Liz, but also, as you can see, other DEP staff are here as well, available partly to hear your questions to the extent that we can give immediate answers. We can do that to update you on kind of what we're doing and how we're working, and we'd be able to get back questions that we can't answer immediately. We can get back to you as quickly as we can. Um, so, from our perspective, this is going to go on for another month at least. So we're approaching it on a number of fronts. We're still ironing out the kinks of access to various systems working at home. Our IT folks have actually been speeding up the implementation of some of their longer term plans, which would make working remotely a lot easier. Although it can't be rolled out to everybody yet because we don't have the actual physical equipment for it. But they're actually being kind of very flexible. So as the days go by, we're adding people who have VPN access to our networks, which helps. And we're learning how to work remotely. I think wayside cleanup does have a little bit of an advantage because we've been using eDEP for a while. So a lot of the documents that are coming in that we would do the normal review of auditing work, all those documents are still available to us as they are to you through eDEP. So that has been helpful, making sure that the staff are continue some form of our operations. I don't think we'll be having any problem meeting our audit numbers this year. But our primary focus has been on maintaining our emergency response work. There are a lot of things, both in the Wayside Cleanup program and other programs, that if they're not done this week or next week, or if they're not done until July, that's fine, and that can be accommodated. But conditions that pose an emergency, that pose an imminent hazard, we still need to address. And the outside world, the LSPs, the PRPs still need to address. So we are struggling with and working on kind of that balance between the imminent risks that we have to deal with now related to environmental releases versus the COVID risks that are also imminent that we have to deal with. And that's something that we're going to be trying to address in guidance. We have some written guidance which we hope to be posting in another day or two. Because of consistency in message, everybody is making sure that documents are reviewed kind of up and down the chain so that the state speaks with one voice on the COVID issues and what our operations are doing. But as part of that, we do want to recognize that, as I said, a lot of the more routine work that can be put off should be put off. Your DEP staff are not going out to do routine work that can be put off. And we hope that the PRPs and the LSPs are not sending staff out to do routine work that could be put off for another month or two. That might result in missing deadlines that are coming up that are imminent, and we've recognized that. And Wayside Cleanup has a process for that notice of delay, which can be used to let us know that, hey, this deadline is coming up, we're not going to meet it because of COVID-19, and we're going to understand and be compassionate in that. And there will be no enforcement of those deadlines for those routine work that can be put off. And we'll have more details on that in the written documentation. we do want people to focus on imminent hazards and emergency response, the 2-hour and 72-hour notifications that come in. And with things, the typical tanker truck overturning on the highway, we're sending our ER staff out. They're still responding to that. And in dealing with the issues, our contractors are going out. Those are kind of the more obvious things that do have to be dealt with on a real-time basis. We are getting questions both from LSPs and from our staff about handle things that are more in between. We have one case in the central region where we had previously taken private well samples for PFAS and had come up with extremely high concentrations that would pose an imminent hazard. During normal, they immediately got bottled water. These are levels that would have been would also raise concerns about potential dermal contact, very, very high levels. And so the question arises, we would normally put in a POET system in a reasonable time frame. What becomes a reasonable time frame for this? And having confirmed with our contractors that they were able to actually install those systems if needed, what we then did is call the residents and really try to have an informed discussion with them about whether there are, whether there are sensitive subpopulations living there, kind of what their need for immediate action would be, and what their tolerance and their level of comfort for immediate action would be. And of the 4 homes that we would normally immediately put in POET systems, we identified, one self-identified as having a sensitive subpopulation, members of sensitive subpopulation living there. The 3 others did not. They were comfortable with continuing to use the bottled water, but putting off the POET systems until later. The one remaining household, we were able to discuss accommodations for how workers could come into the house, keep isolation, keep separation between the people living in the home and the workers coming in, and work out a system by which the POET system could be installed. So in those areas where there might be normally some immediate action taken, DEP recognizes that there are more gray areas where that balance of what you need to do for the release comes into conflict with what you need to do to protect against the coronavirus. And how do you balance that? And that's not going to be a simple, straightforward black and white discussion. And it should be something that involves the PRP and the LSP, DEP staff, and certainly the homeowners or the people that are affected by that in a 3-way or 4-way conversation. So part of what we would recommend if people are facing that sort of situation, to call the DEP either through the 888 number or through the division director, or certainly if you're working with staff already as part of the IRA, call that staff person and initiate that contact so that we can have that conversation. So a lot of this is not going to be black and white about what is and is not expected. We encourage people to use a lot of common sense and to keep in as much contact as possible, to use the notice of delay to let us know kind of what is going to be put off until later and why. And for the more gray area things, kind of call and have the conversation as we go along. I think that's the main thing that we wanted to talk about. That was at the top of my mind. The written guidance will be out later. Anything else we wanted to talk about, Liz? You want me to unmute you?
No, Paul, I thought that was a good summary. The only thing I wanted to add is that people who do have submittals that aren't delayed, that EDP is up and running and working. So any work you had ready to submit and are able to submit, go ahead and submit it as you usually would.
we have any questions, observations?
Hi, Paul. This is Dave LaPusada.
Hey, Dave.
How are you? I sent you guys a question earlier, and I think I have at least part of the answer in terms of the notice of delay. And I realize we're going to be getting some guidance out. But for people who are pushed up against their one-year deadline for tier classification, how are annual compliance fees or compliance fees playing into this? Are we waiving them, or?
Rob's cat is going to answer that. Well, first, the tier classification, I would view that as one of the kind of routine things that, kind of depending upon the situation, somebody may not have, all of the data that would be necessary for that. If the reports are written and ready to be submitted, certainly EDEP is working and can take it. But if circumstances are such that a notice of delay would be filed for that, one, we understand that, and that would be one of those kind of routine things that that we would take into account. And our goal would not be to drive that into a tier 1D, but to essentially delay that for some period of time. And that's partly a data systems thing. And we would work to avoid charging the tier 1D. So I look to Rob to either confirm or deny that we would have the ability to do that. But that would be something that would be taken into account. I mean, if people can't make those submittals, it is not a huge pressing thing that somebody tier classify next week versus in July. And it's not worth running, increasing somebody's COVID risk in order to make that deadline. So we take that into account.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Any other experiences you guys have come up against in the past week or so that is making your job difficult, interesting?
Paul, this is Nancy. I just wanted to point out that I think there's a question in the chat room for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Question, EDP submittals. I submitted a 103/120-day release notification on Tuesday. Are release notifications being processed, and can I anticipate the new RTN shortly? Dave, the processing of the RTNs, so that's a data system thing, which is one of our more difficult, getting into the back end of EDP to do that processing. Steve, do you want to say how talk about how the Northeast region is dealing with 120-day? Hold on, I have to unmute you. There you go. Okay, try it.
The data management folks have figured out a workaround in a way that they're able to access epics and assign tracking numbers. So it should only be a day or two before a tracking number is assigned if it's in the Northeast region.
Paul, we did talk about that, and I think all of the regions, and if this is wrong, chime in, but they confirmed that they were able to assign the release tracking numbers for 120-day notifications.
Okay, great.
If there is a problem, Paul, if somebody isn't getting the release tracking number, have them feel free to contact me, either telephone or email.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that goes for a lot of the site-specific questions. If you have a question about if you're in a gray area, if work should, people should be going out into the field or not, contact the regional office, contact the staff you've been working with, or the deputy regional director for the region, and pose the question. I think the overall philosophy is that we want to make sure that nobody is putting themselves or other people at risk for something that is relatively routine, but for those imminent hazards and emergency situations, that that risk balancing really does need to be made, and we would recommend not doing it in isolation. Talk with us, talk with the people affected by it as well. Anything else? Oh, Gerard, I didn't see you up there in the corner. Hi, Gerard. No, you're muted, Gerard. Now you're unmuted.
Okay, good morning. Yeah, I forgot to unmute myself.
Okay, I'm unmuting all of you, I think, and except those who muted themselves, I guess. So anybody else have any questions? Anybody want to contribute or talk about conflicts or issues that have come up, or how you're struggling? Our biggest struggle has been, I think, partly with the IT systems and not having access to the things that we normally would in the ways that we normally would. But we are slowly adjusting to that one way or another. But we have a shortage of Windows 10 laptops, and that's the gold, the currency of the moment. No? Okay, well, I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to, than we have to. This is great. I'm taking it that things are at least progressing in some, if not normal way, at least manageable way. And we'll do this again next week. And if it's just a chat and there are no pressing concerns, so much the better. But look for some guidance, hopefully later in the next couple of days. Written DEP is putting together a DEP-specific COVID-19 webpage that will hopefully link all together all of the guidance DEP is issuing with links out to the broader Massachusetts-specific COVID web pages. So with that, thank you for coming. Again, any questions you have in the meantime, you can send to bwsc.information@mass.gov or bwsc.regulations@mass.gov. And other than that, have a good rest of the day.